We need to give more to our students. We need to give them the education they need. We need to give them the foundational skills that are missing. There's no more grammar instruction. I don't know what happened to it, but it has slowly dwindled away. They're not even expected to spell anymore. We need to do better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to Ms. Holloway. You'll also have 3 minutes for your opening.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chamber, for having us tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Sandy Holloway, and I'm a BESE member in District 3, which encompasses of 15 districts. I'm a veteran educator for the last 40 years and seeking re-election for BESE District 3. As a lifelong educator, I served in the traditional and charter school settings in Lafourche Parish School District. 33 years in the traditional setting, I had the privilege of teaching regular ed and special ed students. I was also an assistant principal, a principal, and also a supervisor at the central office. 10 years ago, I was appointed as executive director at Bayou Community Charter School, which is a type 1 charter school that was authorized by Lafourche Parish School Board, so I've continued to work for the district. I was born in Breaux Bridge, St. Martin Parish, where my roots are embedded very deep in the South. I held a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education and Special Ed from the University of Southwestern Louisiana, currently UL, Lafayette, and a master's degree plus 30 in curriculum and instruction, supervision, and administration from Nicholls State University. As you can tell, I have extensive experience and qualifications. As a BESE member since 2016, I also served as the chair for the Educator Effectiveness Committee and also the co-chair for the State Special Ed Advisory Panel. I'm actively involved in many aspects of the community, the state, and internationally. I serve on the Thibodeau Chamber of Commerce's Executive Board as treasurer and as a member of the Government and Public Affairs, Blue Ribbon, and Essentials for Educators Committee. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Thibodeau, serving as past president, and Rotary District 6200 chair of Early Act and Youth Act clubs. I am an alumni of Leadership Lafourche and Leadership Louisiana. I am married to Skip, who's here tonight, and we have 3 children, Shay, Seth, and Simone, married and with 8 grandchildren, and we all reside in Thibodeau. I'm running for re-election to continue to be a vote for children because every child deserves a quality education. As an educator and administrator with 40 years of experience, I am committed to giving every child in our state access to high-quality education that best fits his or her needs in order to excel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move into our question, which we will have 2 minutes for a response on this. And our first question will go to Ms. Perea. First, I'll say a statement, and it'll be followed by a question. I'll repeat the question again at the end. State accountability involves hours of testing for young students, along with regular teacher tests for report cards and testing to measure progress. Children in St. Mary Parish schools can spend up to 180 plus hours each year taking tests. If elected, what is your vision for student accountability testing? Please be specific and also include in your answer what plans you have for LEAP testing. Again, the question, if elected, what is your vision for student accountability testing? Please be specific and also include in your answer what plans you have for LEAP testing.
My district faces the same exact problem with the number of hours of testing. I think we should actually we should use the NAEP test. It is what we are judged on, what we're based on for the year when we do our national ranking is based off of the NAEP. It's a 1-day test that doesn't even take the entire day. It's only a half day at the most, and it focuses on ELA and math, and you can't change the data on it to make it look like students are doing better. For science and social studies, I think the districts could probably come up with their own end of course assessment that they have done in the past. And I think that the LEAP should go away. It's not a valid measurement. It does nothing for educators. We get no feedback from that test whatsoever. Parents get no feedback other than a score. And the promotional standards for that, it fluctuates every year depending on how they need it to look, whether they need to show more students being successful, less students being successful. It changes, and it's just not a good measure of data.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Holloway, it will be the same question. If elected, what is your vision for student accountability testing? Please be specific and also include in your answer what your plans are for LEAP testing. So again, if elected, what is your vision for student accountability testing? Please be specific and also include in your answer what plans you have for LEAP testing.
Thank you. Thank you. I support assessing students, teachers, and their schools on how they're doing to help our children learn for the following reasons. We need to know how they are doing so adjustments can be made prior to a child failing or a school failing. We deserve, our children deserve to know what their status is, and parents also need to know and deserve the outcomes of a child and their teacher and how they're doing. However, we do want to be balanced in the amount of testing that is required and the time that it takes to administer these tests. Too often, the amount of time consumes educators, and they lose focus on the meaning and reasons for assessing. As a BESE member, I supported legislation that limits state testing to no more than 2%, which is possibly 13 hours in a week, once a year. And now districts need to work to reduce their testing time as well. This is why it's important to have quality assessments aligned to high standards like the LEAP, and the NAEP does not align with our standards. It helps you eliminate assessments that don't accurately gauge how our students are doing at reaching or meeting the bar. Another example I can give you is that in each district, they're responsible to set the testing time or schedule. Some give district assessments, some give other tests, and they also give progress monitoring. In a local district, due to the fact that there was a lot of testing besides the LEAP of 13 hours, possibly a year, they reduced the amount of tests that a teacher gives per content. And that's within your pupil progression plan. So I highly recommend that each district look at the time of testing that they're doing for each of their students.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move into our second question, and Ms. Holloway, you will answer this one first. Lately, the state has been dictating the curriculum that schools must use. In St. Mary Parish, in 2018, 12 schools were listed for intervention. Some schools had to remove all earlier textbooks, and the state required teachers to download a scripted curriculum. If elected, would you, as a BESE member, allow flexibility in how fully certified and advanced degree teachers use their expertise to advance students with a continually changing state curriculum? In other words, can experienced and high-performing teachers pull from multiple sources to teach students, or must they follow the state's scripted curriculum? Can experienced and high-performing teachers pull from multiple sources to teach students, or must they follow the state's scripted curriculum?
Thank you. It's important to be clear that local districts are responsible for selecting the curriculum to be used by the schools in their district. This is not a state decision, nor is it a state mandate. I fully am supportive of local control around selection of the criteria. I'm also supportive if the State Department wants to make grants available to districts that are resource-strapped and haven't had the funds to adopt and implement curriculum that is aligned to our state's higher standards, particularly with regards to schools that have been persistently struggling to serve students well. And if they are struggling, there are other alternatives for these schools. As a 40-year educator and administrator, I have always appreciated local control and the autonomy to make decisions that are the best interests of students in their classroom and school. Oftentimes, teachers are asked to implement policies passed with little direction, support, and resources. If there's a school where a teacher has only been given a scripted curriculum, then I would suggest that there is an implementation issue. And we have seen so many cases where educators across the state haven't been given the leadership, resources, and support they need effectively to implement higher standards and curriculum. Since this is a local control issue, we must do better locally to give teachers the supports they need to be successful.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Perea. Can experienced and high-performing teachers pull from multiple sources to teach students, or must they follow the state's scripted curriculum? Can experienced and high-performing teachers pull from multiple sources to teach students, or must they follow the state's scripted curriculum?
I currently teach in a school that has been placed on corrective action because of our subgroup performance on leave. The state does tell you, in fact, that you have to use their scripted curriculum of guidebooks and Eureka. They actually come in and check your classroom to make sure that you have no other materials from old curriculum sources or from teachers pay teachers or even something that you came up with yourself. They come and check. They come and spot check that we're following that script to a T. And that script, when it comes to your compass evaluation, you will not get a 4. There's nothing in that script that allows a teacher to be able to reach that. It's a 3 at the best. Teachers should be able to use the skills that they have to create meaningful lessons. Every Sunday, I should be coming up with my own lesson plans instead of highlighting something that somebody wrote at the state that's telling me this is what's best for my students when they've never even been in my classroom. There's no room for differentiation with that script. I get 30 minutes a day to try and bring up my own students with my own resources through remediation, and that's not enough. And the worst part about the script, the pacing is just all over the place. It doesn't give the students time to practice one skill before moving on to another.
Thank you. Our third question will also be answered by Ms. Perea, and that question is, BESE is responsible for hiring and firing a state superintendent. What qualities do you look for in a state superintendent of education, and has John White met those qualities? If not, what are your plans once elected? What qualities do you look for in a state superintendent of education? And has John White met those qualities? If not, what are your plans once elected?
The state superintendent for our public schools needs to have been a public educator for more than at least a year. A good decade at least would be good, and also needs to serve in administration. My opponent has more qualities for a good superintendent than our current superintendent does. My plan is to replace him. We need somebody who knows our public education system, who has been in it, and who wants to see our public education system rise above the bottom of the nation. We need somebody new in there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holloway, you'll have the same question. What qualities do you look for in a state superintendent of education? And has John White met those qualities? If not, what are your plans once elected? What qualities do you look for in a state superintendent of education? And has John White met those qualities? If not, what are your plans once elected?
Thank you. I, as a leader in the state, I look for someone who is a visionary and who has the ability to lead for students with courage and conviction. Since being elected to BESE, Mr. White has consistently received a job rating approval from the 11 board members, 8 who were elected and 3 who were appointed by the governor. So there are 11 members who decide on his evaluation together. And this is because while no one is perfect or is right 100% of the time, we have started to move things in the right direction. Are we there? No, we need to work even harder. And no, and we're not there yet to continue to work and move Louisiana at a higher level. But even at a time when we have raised the bar for students and teachers, as we knew they could, have met and exceeded that expectation. Graduation rates are up, more students are completing advanced placement courses, dual enrollment is up at the high schools, and more students are graduating on time and going to a 2-year college or university. And all of this, when we have raised the bar for the purpose of preparing students of today for their life tomorrow. And whether or not we're talking about Mr. White or someone else, what I look for is the same. Someone that can move us forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fourth question will be answered first by Ms. Holloway. That question is, the State Board of Education makes policy that districts must follow. Local school boards make district policy that is to be followed in a school district. And the question is, what control does the local board have in directing the actions of a parish's superintendent? And what can the board do when the superintendent chooses a different course of action? What control does the local board have in directing the actions of a parish's superintendent? And what can the board do when the superintendent chooses a different course of action?
State law, which is Act 1, passed by the legislature, is very clear about the role of the local boards in terms of what authority they have with regards to the superintendent and what authority they do not have in terms of the day-to-day management and activities in school districts or schools. Each district has a set of policies that govern how actions with regards to the board's role must be taken. And I'll leave you with this. It is the school board's job to hire and fire and hold accountable its superintendent, but not to get involved with the day-to-day management.
Thank you. Ms. Perea, you will have the same question. What control does the local board have in directing the actions of a parish's superintendent? And what can the board do when the superintendent chooses a different course of action? What control does the local board have in directing the actions of a parish's superintendent? And what can the board do when the superintendent chooses a different course of action?
Well, just like Ms. Holloway said, the local school board is in charge of hiring and firing their superintendent. But if that superintendent starts to go off in another path, I think the local school board should be able to work and collaborate with BESE to get support, to be able to guide that superintendent back to where things should be.
Thank you. We'll move on to our fifth and final question. Ms. Perea, you will answer this first. Teachers received a $1,000 pay raise this year. In St. Mary Parish, many would question whether this raise equates to what is paid in local business and industry for a certified bachelor level degree employee. What is your plan to raise teacher pay to levels that prevent school systems from hiring unqualified persons for classroom instructional needs? Again, the question, what is your plan to raise teacher pay to levels that prevent school systems from hiring unqualified persons for classroom instructional needs?
I think we need to make sure that we protect our MSP and put that pay raise in there. We need to do it a little bit at a time because there's not the funding available to do it all at once. But we need to work with our legislators to make sure that that happens and talk with our teachers and see what exactly it is that they want from us. But we definitely need to get that in there every year to protect those pay raises and make sure that there's not another freeze where we don't go another decade without seeing some extra money.
Thank you. And Ms. Holloway, you'll have the same question. What is your plan to raise teacher pay to levels that prevent school systems from hiring unqualified persons for classroom instructional needs? What is your plan to raise teachers' pay to levels that prevent school systems from hiring unqualified persons for classroom instructional needs?
Thank you. I supported the recent $1,000 pay raise for teachers and support personnel as part of MFP, as well as an increase per pupil spending for the district. And we realize as BESE members this is not enough. This has been too long a time for our teachers to have an increase in pay. So there is a committee and also conversations being held about us consistently moving forward to make something sustainable for our educators. And but I can tell you that that $1,000 was nowhere near enough, especially after taxes are taken out. We have much work to do to ensure that educators are being paid well for the hard work they do so we can recruit and retain the best teachers for our children. Decisions about district staff, I want to talk a little bit about within your own districts, and personnel are made at the local level. And districts could take advantage of the authority they have to provide additional pay increases to teachers by making or taking a hard look at any areas where dollars could be redirected to the students and teachers in the classroom. While we can get a view of district spending, we don't currently have a way to dig deeper and really understand in a transparent way how many dollars are reaching the classroom and teachers. In saying all that, we need a way of them being transparent so that we can look at the invested ways of them utilizing their dollars. I would like to see more transparency in local budgets via a public system that anyone can access so we can get a real understanding of this issue and then determine solutions based on what we find.
Thank you very much. And now each candidate will have 3 minutes to summarize her candidacy. We'll begin with Ms. Holloway.
Thank you. I'm running for re-election to continue to be a voice for children because every child deserves a quality education. As an educator and an administrator with over 40 years of experience, I am committed to getting every child in our state access to high quality education that fits his or her needs in order to excel. From birth to college and career, I believe as BESE member that it's our role to ensure that policies are enacted that support student growth and set them on a path for success for college or career. It is not BESE's responsibility to manage schools, districts, or schools. So we set policy, and hopefully our school districts can manage and move forward in those areas. During my time as BESE, I have voted to increase teacher and support personnel pay and additional dollars for districts to spend on students. So I supported increased access to quality early childhood education programs for children from birth to 4 years. I advocated for high school students to receive career training and credentials before they graduate. I ensured children with disabilities receive a quality education that prepares them for success in life. I also worked diligently with legislation that reduces state testing time to no more than 2%, and worked to ensure teachers receive strong preparation residency for a year with resources and supports, both before they enter and while they are in the classroom. I'd appreciate your vote to re-elect me for BESE District 3. I'm number 40 on the ballot, and thanks for your consideration, and thanks, Chamber, for this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Perea, you will also have 3 minutes to summarize your candidacy.
I'm running for BESE because our students need an advocate who's going to put their needs first. We need to bring back art. We need to bring back music. We need to bring back developmentally appropriate standards for our younger students. We need to make learning fun for our children again and put education back in the classroom instead of teaching them how to answer questions on a state test, because that's what's become the most important thing. Not that the child is actually learning, but that they can bubble in the correct answer on the test. We need current public educators on our board because we know what's going on and we can make the best changes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's give a round of applause to our candidates. Y'all may be seated back in the audience.